15. Tyrannosaurus Kingdom was located just west of the Innovation Center and Safari Lodge. The Tyrannosaurus Kingdom, or just T-Rex Kingdom, was a large, metallic, tanky amphitheater-esque building with a ton of accommodative seating and tall steel walls. To the western side of the structure was the Paddock's Gates, which leads to a wide path with large, heavy steel fences on both sides leading to Main Street. To the entrance was the Tyrannosaurus Kingdom gift shop, as well as several small exhibits displaying facts of the Tyrannosaurus. And at the entrance, in blue attractive lettering, said Tyrannosaurus Kingdom. And just visible from a distance could be seen large redwood deciduous trees, slight subtropical vegetation, and at the top of the amphitheater's walls were large metallic support beams, with the T-Rex Kingdom towering, sorry, towering over Main Street. Beneath them sprawled a gift shop, a wide glass-fronted building that practically spilled over with merchandise. Its front displays showcased plush tyrannosaurs with stitched-on smiles, plastic figurines with snapping jaws, and oversized shirts that read, "I survived the king." Inside, the shelves were crammed with coffee mugs shaped like Rex heads, holographic bookmarks filled with glossy photographs of paleontological digs. On one wall, a large touchscreen displayed a digital map of Tyrannosaurus discoveries across North America, inviting guests to tap and learn more. Some fresh popcorn and cotton candy drifted from a snack corner tucked near the back, giving the whole shop the feel of both a museum and an amusement park stall. To the right of the shop, smaller exhibits framed the plaza. Interactive kiosks display the anatomy of Tyrannosaurus, its binocular vision, its bone crushing bite force, its excellent sense of smell. A few enclosures held casts of real fossils, serrated teeth as long as kitchen knives, replica of a claw, even a partial femur. Tourists craned their necks and snapped photos. Well, tourists would have. Tourists would have. Huh? See. Oh crap, guys, sorry. Would have. Would have. Would have craned their necks and snapped photos while children took it on parents' hands. You're the head inside. Sorry about that. Thompson's siblings followed Nathan toward the gate, Wilson walking close to keep pace, while Dr. Morales brought up in the rear, quiet and watchful. Angelina broke the silence first. "So where's Rivera? Shouldn't she be here leading this little parade?" Wilson shook his head. "Rivera's in the control room with Ethan Davis, the other staff. Every major attraction here is monitored from there. Habitat conditions, system integrity, safety alerts. Nothing happens without oversight." Angelina scoffed. "Figures I'd rather be up there doing some real work, not poking at code, checking system logs, breaking into firewalls, something worth my time, without wandering around, staring at an overgrown lizard like a tourist." Lucas stopped dead in his tracks, spinning on her with a glare. "Overgrown lizards? Seriously? This isn't some zoo animal, Angelina. This is Junior, the son of the buck and doe from Isla Sorna in 97. The same tyrannosaur that survived one of the most important events in history, and we get to see him in person." His voice rose with each word. "And you'd rather be hacking some server?" Angelina folded her arms, smirking. "At least then I'd be using my brain. Here, it's just gawking. Everyone's drooling over monsters because it makes them feel small and special. You think this is history, but to me, it's just a circus." Lucas's face went red. "You don't get it. You never get it. This is more than a circus, Angie. We're standing on the edge of something bigger than anything humanity's ever seen. Do you know what this means? Back in the early Pliocene, our ancestors, Australopithecus afarensis, walked across East Africa, saw giraffes, antelope, wild hogs. Hog rider. Okay, back on topic. Even African elephants. Animals that still exist today. But they also saw things that are gone forever. Dinophilus. Dinotherium, Incleotherium, whole worlds of life lost to time, and now after millions of years, we've built a way to share our planet with creatures just as unique, maybe even more. A real modern day lost world, alive again. Lost world? Angelina barked a laugh. More like lost time, and I don't want to spend mine listening to you ramble. The argument boiled, Lucas trembling with anger, Angelina glaring back, her jaw set. Enough! Wilson stepped between them, his voice calm but with a weight that made them both freeze. He faced Lucas first. Your enthusiasm is admirable, Lucas. It's passion like yours that keeps people inspired, but when you press too hard, you push away the very people you want to share it with. Then he turned to Angelina, his tone soft but steady. And your skepticism has merit. There are always questions worth asking, but brushing off your brother's wonders so harshly, that does him a disservice. Sometimes skepticism can sound like cynicism, and cynicism is easy. Wonder takes effort. Silence that followed was thick but cooling. Lucas exhaled sharply, his hands relaxing at his sides. Angelina muttered something under her breath, but her expression softened, her eyes flickering away in discomfort. Dr. Morales finally spoke, his voice even. Junior is not a spectacle. He is a living animal. His history is long, and his survival is remarkable. Show him the respect you would have for any rare creature. Neither sibling replied, but both nodded faintly. Good, Wilson said, smoothing the tension with a faint smile. Now, let us focus on why we're here. He glanced at Nathan. Shall we? Nathan nodded, motioning them forward. The group advanced toward the amphitheater entrance. From somewhere beyond the walls, deep in the forested paddock, a low resonant bellow rolled across the grounds. The sound wasn't just heard, it was felt. Vibration in their ribs, a reminder something massive waited inside. It's Queso. Nah, I'm just joking. Lucas froze eyes wide. That's him. That's going to be him. Morales adjusted his glasses. His tone matter of fact but tinged with awe. Yes, Junior. Chapter 14. Inside the Tyrannosaurus kingdom opened a vast amphitheater. Tired seating swept upward on three sides, while the fourth was nothing but towering steel, walls broken by observation panels and safety netting. The enclosure beyond was a forest that looked as though it had been plucked from another age. The habitat was dense and layered. Towering redwoods rose high above the ground, their trunks vanishing into misty canopies. Behind them, ferns sprawled across the floor in thick carpets, dotted with mosses that clung to fallen logs. Patches of broad-leaved deciduous trees broke up the conifers, while here and there stood the occasional palm, reminders of the subtropical design woven into the environment. Moisture clung to the air, fog curling between the trunks and catching in the beams of light that fluttered down. It felt almost like the southwestern reaches of Isla Sorna, untamed, primeval, and damp with life back during Ian Malcolm's time on the island in 1997. The group found seats near the front, close to the heavy glass barrier. Lucas pressed forward eagerly, notebook out, eyes wide. Tyrannosaurus Rex, he began his words, spilling out in a practice rhythm. Lived between about 68 and 66 million years ago, right at the end of the Cretaceous period. Its range stretched across what's now western North America, Montana, South Dakota, Colorado, Wyoming, even on Alberta, Canada. Apex predators, of course, hunted hadrosaurids like Ammonosaurus, ceratopsians like Triceratops. Evidence suggests scavenging too, but that jaw, he mimed the snap of his teeth. 60 serrated teeth, each one the size of a banana. The strongest bite force of any terrestrial animal in history. Angelina slumped in her seat, grunting. Oh, great, a lecture. Couldn't you just enjoy the show like a normal person? Lucas ignored her. His voice carried a sense of fascination. They weren't just mindless monsters either. Senses rivaled modern raptors. Keeps keen eyesight, an olfactory bulb the size of a melon, They were intelligent hunters, the kings of their ecosystems. As he spoke, a platform in the center of the paddock rose silently from the ground. A small metal cage sat on it, and inside was a goat. The bleeding echoed against the amphitheater walls. A moment later, the gate on the cage opened, and the goat hesitantly stepped out. The platform sank back into the earth, leaving the trembling animal alone in the misty forest. Above, a narrow suspended balcony, a worker flicked his wrist and hurled a flare into the clearing, and landed a few feet from the goat, sparking to life with a hiss of red light and smoke. The goat bleated louder, jerking its head towards the noise. Jillian chuckled, shaking her head. Really? All this for a goat? There's nothing out there. As if on cue, the foliage shifted. At first, it was rustling in the underbrush, with twigs and leaves breaking or twisting. Then there were tremors of leaves, then a heavier rustling. The sound grew deeper, louder, as the branches bent and the undergrowth shook. Goat stiffened, eyes rolling, hooves scraping nervously at the dirt. Then from the shadows, a thick dark green tail with distinct darker green, almost blackish striping, which slid into view, swaying slowly as it emerged from the brush before disappearing once more. Jelina's smile faltered, following an eerie moment of silence. The aggressive rough rustling erupted into chaos. Trees split, birds tore with a thunderous crash. Junior burst from the redwood grove. His massive frame shook the ground as he charged forward, jaws open, eyes locked on the goat. Prey bolted, scrambling across the clearing, but it was too late. Junior closed the distance in a handful of strides. His jaws snapped shut around the bleeding animal. The sound ended instantly. The Tyrannosaurus lifted his head, jaws pulling against gravity as he shook the limp body. Once, twice, before swallowing. Then he threw back his head and roared, sound echoing through the amphitheater like a rolling storm. The audience chamber itself seemed to vibrate under the force. YouTube, do not demonetize me. Please, no. This is just a Jurassic Park fanfic. Kind of. Font the erotic sexual romance stuff, but please do not demonetize me. Don't. Do not. Please don't. Do not demonetize me, please. Junior was around 14.8 feet or 4.51 meters tall and 37 feet or 11.3 meters in length. However, this wasn't his full height, as he was just 7 years old, or the equivalent of 10 years old for humans, and was still growing. Junior had a slight feathering down his back, as well as smooth, dark green colored skin, distinct, even darker green, close to black striping from the top of his head to the tip of Junior's tail. Junior also had non-pronated arms, almost in a clapping motion, as well as that very same striping on his legs. Junior also had yellowish colored eyes, as well as a distinct, pronounced head, bony eye sockets, and distinct brow ridges. Lucas laughed out loud, clapping his hands together in awe. Yes, did you see that? Textbook ambush, straight out of the fossil record. Angelina sat frozen, her earlier bravado erased. Her face had gone pale, her eyes fixed on the towering predator as if she were trying to process the reality of what she just witnessed. She swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. That thing's real. For a few minutes, Junior lingered in the clearing, nostrils flaring, tail swaying as he regarded the watching humans from behind the barrier. Then, with a grunt, he turned back to the forest, his massive form disappearing to the mist and redwoods. The sound of rustling faded until only silence remained. Wilson exhaled softly, almost in reverence, just like his father. He murmured, though a bit smaller and a touch less hostile. Morales gave a slight nod, his expression unreadable through his eyes, though his eyes remained fixed on the tree line. Lucas leaned back, beaming, the thrill of the moment still rattling through him. Angelina, meanwhile, rubbed her temples, as though trying to block the sight from replaying in her head. The amphitheater, quiet now, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Junior's next move. Chapter 15. The Expedition Center was a rectangular laboratory esque building. The Expedition Center was rather blocky in appearance, with three floors surrounded by a relatively shallow moat. The Expedition Center was comprised of the main first floor, a large warpway around the building. At the helipad on the building's roof, the Expedition Center had a nearby jointed satellite tower, a nearby maintenance shed. There were also a few nearby crates with engine labeled on the sides. The Expedition Center's primary function is paleontology, which is done for the discovery of fossils, minerals, and treasure across the world at various dig sites where they can be sent to the Creation Lab. Inside, the air was cool and sterile. Machines hummed softly, computers blinked with data, and researchers in lab coats moved in inefficient silence. One wall of the main floor was dominated by glowing monitors. Wilson's eyes were drawn immediately to a large screen displaying Isla Sorna. Colored markers traced the movements of the dinosaurs, still roaming the islands. Larger theropods clustered in the centers. Herbivores spread across the outer rim. Labels flickered with each ping. Tyrannosaurus rex, Velociraptor, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Pachycephalosaurus. Wilson read quietly, but his gaze hardened at the northeast quadrant, where one name glowed in bold red. Spinosaurus aegypticus. Incredibly aggressive. So it's still out there, he murmured. Even Davis, walking at his side with his usual easy grin, gave a low whistle. Yeah, nasty customer. You wouldn't catch me signing up for a field trip back there. That one makes the Rexes look friendly. Dr. Elizabeth Johnson adjusted her glasses. Monitoring helps maintain balance. Predators and prey in equilibrium, at least as much as possible on an isolated ecosystem. I didn't even know how to say that word. Yo, let me know in the comments of how you say that word. Equilibrium. Equilibrium. I don't know. Well, back on topic. Wilson said nothing, though unease flickered in his eyes. As they walked further inside, he finally spoke. For the record, Angelina and Lucas are back at the lodge. Through this morning's little spectacle, he hesitated. Angelina, in particular, was almost traumatized by seeing Junior devour a goat in plain sight. Lucas thought it was exhilarating, of course, but she didn't quite shake it. Johnson gave a sympathetic nod. It isn't easy for everyone, even if you know it's natural behavior. This doesn't make it any less shocking, Wilson replied. They entered the main laboratory chamber. Wide and sterile, it was lined with reinforced glass cases, steel mounts, and bright lamps illuminating fossil specimens. The air smelled faintly of dust and preservatives. Johnson's face brightened as she led the group toward the central workstation. The positive note, the six Thoracosaurs you saw earlier have made a full recovery, faster than we projected. In fact, heart rate stabilized, feeding well, mobility restored. She'll be reintegrated into the Triceratops territory within days. That's the attraction kids are most eager to see, Wilson said, though his tone was measured. Martin Jackson tapped at his tablet, his voice clipped and clinical. Recovery time was almost a week shorter than our models predicted. No complications. Ethan, Ethan spread his arms dramatically. See? Happy dinosaurs. Healthy dinosaurs. Life doesn't just find a way, sometimes surprises us with an upgrade. But Wilson's attention had already shifted. Toward the far corner of the chamber, mounted under a cluster of spotlights, was a skeleton. Its skull was massive and heavy jawed, teeth curving like ivory knives. The plate card read, Eurasian cave lion. Oh god, I'm gonna butcher this. Swibian Jura. I don't know German, but let me know in the comments of what that means. Swabian Jura, southern Germany, Pleistocene epoch. Wilson froze. His voice was a whisper at first. No, 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 no. You shouldn't be doing this. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What? It's just a fossil. Amazing though, right? Biggest cat Europe ever had. Makes African lions look like house pets. Johnson stepped closer, her tone steady but careful. Dr. Wilson, this is a specimen only. No genome work. No cloning. It's for comparative anatomy and study. Wilson didn't answer immediately. His eyes locked on the skull, the long teeth gleaming under the lights. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight. Panthera damn it. Panthera apex predator of the Pleistocene era of Europe. They lived across western Europe and from the Iberian Peninsula to Great Britain, Alaska, and northwestern Canada over 600,000 to 12,000 years ago. They were 1.2 meters tall, or about 4 feet tall, had a body of 2.1 meters, or 7 feet, much larger than the average African lion, smarter hunters. Most importantly, they knew us. Martin frowned. It's a fossil, an artifact. Wilson shook his head slowly. Dinosaurs are alien. To a velociraptor, even with 70 million years of instinct, a human would be incomprehensible. She wouldn't know what she was looking at. She'd have no word for us, no frame of reference. But this, he gestured toward the fossil. The cave lion, or its cousin, smiled on. They lived beside early man, hunted the same prey, competed for the same caves. When they looked at us, they understood. Predator, rival, prey. They knew exactly what we were. The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them. Ethan finally broke it with a half smile. That's one way to look to spook a room. Oh. Sorry about that. It's a but come on, it's a fossil. No one's unleashing saber-tooths in San Diego. Legal with the keel over at the suggestion. Johnson's voice carried more gravitas. He's right about one thing, though. These bones are a reminder how recent those animals were, how close to us. Which is exactly why we leave them as bones. She looked Wilson squarely in the eye. I promise you, Dr. Wilson. We study, we preserve, we learn. Nothing more. Wilson exhaled slowly, but didn't look reassured. His gaze lingered on the lion's skull, shadow etched across his face. Maybe, he said at last, but I've seen how easily the line between study and creation can blur, and I don't think InGen or United Genesis are ready for what lies on the other side. Chapter 16, San Diego, California, February 3rd, 2004, mid morning. Toyota Land Cruisers stumbled steadily along the dirt road, their dark green gray frames gleaming against the morning light. Built sleeker than the heavy ACU transports, but reinforced with steel and bulletproof glass. The Ranger vehicles looked more like safari trucks crossed with military hardware. Angelina tapped her fingers impatiently against the window, unimpressed. So this is it? We're out here in glorified jeeps. What happened to those tank-like ones I saw earlier? The ranger in the passenger seat happened. Wait, seats happened. See, happened. Oh, chuckled, chuckled. Those belong to ACU. Hold on, not armored. I meant asset. Asset. That was a typo. Sorry. Asset containment unit. They're only deployed when there's real trouble. Think rogue carnivores or aggressive ceratopsian. These, he patted the dash, are ranger vehicles. Faster, lighter, and made for patrol. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry though. It's still plenty tough. Jelena rolled her eyes. Yeah, tough enough to get stepped on. Before anyone could reply, movement flickered up the edge of the track. A cluster of small bird-like shapes hopping out from the brush. Greenish, narrow-bodied, twitching heads and quick darting tails. They skittered over the dirt, pausing to snap at Edding Six, then dashed off into the grass again. Whoa. Lucas leaned forward nearly, pressing his face against the glass. Compies, compsognathus. They're so coordinated, like ground level starlings. His tone was strangely irreverent, eyes tracking their jerky movements with fascination. Angelina recoiled. Coordinated? Try nightmare fuel. They look like creepy little rats with scales and teeth. Ugh. She shot her brother with a disgusted look. The way you're staring at them is even worse. Lucas frowned, bristling. They're survivors, opportunistic predators that could eat anything. Bugs, carrion, scraps. That adaptability kept them alive when bigger things died out. You've gotta admire that. You've gotta admire that. Yeah, well, admire them from the other side of the window. Angelina muttered, folding her arms tight. Wilson had been quietly observing, his gaze locked on the little pack. Extraordinary, he murmured. To think Compsognathus longipus first discovered in Moravia more than a century ago. See them alive, moving together. This is what paleontologists only ever dreamed of. The land cruisers carried on, leaving the compies behind in the brush. As the trail curved down the slope, the landscape suddenly stopped. A wide man-made river glimmered under the sun, winding between moss-covered banks lined with ferns and conifers. Mist hung low over the water. Then the shadows appeared. Massive forms rose from the tree line, their necks swinging lazily above the canopy. Others moved nearer the river, their deep, resonant calls echoing like low brass horns. The Diplodocus moved with an awe-dropping, fantastical, wondrous motion. The beasts were over 90 feet or 27 meters in length. A 26-foot or 8-meter tall neck, the Diplodocus had a long body, pillar-shaped legs, a whip-like tail, a long neck, and a slightly small lizard-like head, similar to most long-necked dinosaurs, as well as a thick neck, club-shaped tail, at its tip, and a rusted red-colored skin tone with brownish, almost blackish striping from the head to tail. The United Genesis breed of Diplodocus also had a slightly darker undertone. Its underbelly compared to its overall skin texture. The ground itself seemed to thrum with each heavy step. Lucas's jaw dropped. Diplodocus. And look, Parasaurolophus. His words tumbled out in awe. Diplodocus lived in the late Jurassic, about 150 million years ago, mostly in what's now North America. They could stretch over 80 feet long, feeding high up on conifers, plants, they couldn't other herbivores couldn't reach. They were like the skyscrapers of their time, pointed eagerly toward a smaller herd by the water. The male Parasaurolophus had a distinctive beige body, red accents on its crest and head. Its most noticeable feature is its distinctive backwards curving crest, which is black on top and transitions to a reddish color on its head and neck. Parasaurs, although generally walking on all fours, could stand on their hind legs and walk for brief periods of time, not and and had non-pronated arms. Male Parasaurolophus also had a whitish underbelly and a rusted reddish horizontal striping going from the head to the tail. The Parasaurolophus were generally around 9 meters or 30 feet in length, 16 feet or 4.877 meters in height. Female Parasaurolophus were slightly smaller and were less colorful than their male counterparts. Brownish greenish color tone, with darker, distinctive black leg stripes and a paler underbelly. It also features a cream-colored stripe along its shoulders and a red-colored back, with the crest itself being black. Parasaurolophus lived way later, in the late Cretaceous, around 76 million years ago. They roamed what's now North America from Alberta, Canada, Utah, the Dakotas, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, New Mexico. That crest isn't just for show, it's a resonating chamber. They could produce deep calls that carried for miles, like natural foghorns. Entire herds communicating across valleys. Can you imagine that sound echoing through an ancient forest? Angelina groans. Oh, great. A live action dinosaur documentary. Thanks, Lucas. It really adds to the magic. Wilson didn't even glance her way. His eyes were fixed on the earth, awestruck. No, let him speak. This is as close as anyone will let come to stepping back into the Mesozoic. The river, the vegetation, the animals, it's history alive, brave and before us. The vehicles slowed to a crawl as the sauropods waded into the river, tails swinging like pendulums. Parasaurolophus lifted their crests toward the sun, low notes rumbling faintly in the mist. Even Angelina, despite herself, fell quiet, watching in silence as time itself seemed to fold around them. Hold on. Give me a moment, guys. Chapter 17. The Safari Lodge was surrounded by inch thick, heavy steel, 12-foot tall thick fencing. There was a nearby swimming pool and tennis court within the lodge's perimeter. Safari Lodge also had a few nearby emergency shelters, and the doors were steel clad, very strong. With the hotel structures being reinforced metal bars for added stability and protection, the resort appears as a large modern complex designed with integrated look that complements the park's theme. Some of the lodge's private lounges, Dr. Nathan Wilson sat opposite Rivera. Ethan Davis at a broad mahogany table. Vera, tall and composed, her silver blonde hair tied neatly back, looked every bit the cold professional and composed. In her crisp fine button white shirt, and golden belt. Her black heels clicked lightly against the floor as she shifted in her seat. Ethan slouched comfortably. By contrast, a notebook idly open in front of him, but clearly forgotten. Wilson, leaning forward with his hands folded, cleared his throat. His tone carried the weight of both lecture and confession. So, Isla Nublar must think of it as Hammond's stage for his grand experiment. But the truth is, its history began long before dinosaurs even ever set foot there. Oh, just ignore that, guys. Ignore that little profile picture. Rivera arched a brow. Go on. Wilson nodded. Nublar belongs to the Muertes archipelago, the Five Deaths, an archipelago lying 200 miles west of Costa Rica. Long before Europeans, for Hammond, it was known to the Bribri people from around 20, for context, from around 12,000 years ago. Humans crossed into the Americas by the Bering Land Bridge or by hugging the Alaskan and Canadian coasts. By 7000 BCE, the Bribri were settled along what's now Costa Rica. Subgroup the Tunsi came to Nublar, its closest island to the mainland. 8,000 years ago, they stepped ashore there. Briefly, perhaps only in small numbers, but they left traces. Still, the island was too harsh, too remote, and the other islands, still the other islands were too harsh, too remote, and in time they left. No lasting settlements, no grand ruins. Pause is dis is gaze distant, as though seeing it unfold. Then came 1525. Diego Diego Fernandez, a Spanish navigator, spotted a great eruption from Mount Sibo, or Mount Sibo, called the land Isla Nublar, the Cloud Islands. For 4 centuries after, Fatunsi lived in relatively peace on on not the not Costa Rica, not the mainland, on Nublar. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry. But by the 1980s, everything changed. Hammond. Vera's lips tightened at the name, but she said nothing. Wilson's tone grew sharper. In 1985, Hammond leased Nublar for 99 years. Injun wanted a blank state. So in 19... Oh my gosh. Injun wanted a blank slate, so in 1986, they pushed the Tunsi off the island with promises of homes, schools, and healthcare on the mainland. Tribe agreed, believing their kin in the Bribri nation to support them. But instead, they found themselves dumped in prefab houses in Costa Rica's poorest slums. The schools, never staffed. The clinics, inadequate. Their awa, or their shaman, refused to perform their ancient rites. Depression spread like wildfire. Even frowned. Stand up straighter. That's worse than I realized. I knew Hammond cut corners, but he didn't cut corners. Wilson interrupted grimly. He cut lives. He built his dream on their backs. 1987, first dinosaurs were ferried over from Sorna. By the time Jurassic Park opened its gates, Tunsi had been stripped of their home, their traditions, their dignity. Heavy silence followed. Vera's expression was unreadable, though her knuckles widened slightly as her hands gripped her chair. Finally, she broke it. Dr. Wilson, United Genesis acquired Ingen in late 2001. We also purchased the Muertes Archipelago outright. It wasn't simply a business move. Her tone hardened, but her tone hardens, cold but clear. 2003, UGE arranged a reservation for the Tun seat. Land, resources, sovereignty. We couldn't undo what Hammond stole, but we gave them a choice to reclaim what remained. Wilson blinked. Reservation? Yes, Rivera replied. The decision on their terms. Some refused, but many returned it. It didn't erase what was done, but at least, finally, they had a say. Ethan leaned forward, speaking with surprising earnestness. Spent a few months I spent a few months with them last year. Helped set up communication between their leaders and UGE. Learn their stories, their language. They're stronger than anyone gave them credit for. They still sing their songs, tell their stories, even after everything. Resilient Resilient didn't even cover it. For a moment, Wilson said nothing. He rose, slowly, and walked toward the lounge's broad window. Beyond the steel fences, the evening sky blazed orange, the sun sinking over San Diego. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, pale and heavy-eyed. Hammond's folly was never just in cloning dinosaurs, Wilson said softly. It was in treating them as attractions, spectacle animals. He forgot that captivity breeds madness. Zoochosis, that's the word. Animals placed in cages too small for their minds. Self-mutilation, neoretic repetition. Dinosaurs were no different. Velociraptor doesn't understand what a human is, but she knows she's not free. She knows the world has walls. His voice hardened, each word deliberate. Jurassic Park was not simply a bad idea, it was an inevitable tragedy. Vera stood, her heels clicking softly against the floor as she approached. Her cold posture cracked for just a heartbeat. Her expression softened. Bittersweet, Dr. Wilson. Bitter for what's been lost. Sweet only in that some lessons are finally learned. Too late for some. Maybe it's not too late for others. Ethan gave a faint smile, though his eyes betrayed unease. Nothing else, it means we've got a chance to do better. Let's clean up the mess before it gets worse. Wilson turned, framed against the fading light. Perhaps, he murmured. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but history has teeth. and it remembers. The room fell into silence, heavy and unresolved, carrying the weight of Hammond's legacy.